Hello, and thank you for joining us today in our study of the book of Psalms. Today we come to Psalm 124, and this is another of the Psalms of David among these songs of ascent that we have been looking at beginning back in Psalm 120. And this one is really a song of victory. Now, we don't have an exact time frame for the setting of this song, and it's only 8 verses in length. But it really deals with the idea of if it hadn't been for the Lord being on our side, things would have been a lot worse. And so let's look at what David has to say in Psalm 124. Beginning in verse 1, we read, If it had not been the Lord who was on our side, let Israel now say, if it had not been the Lord who was on our side when men rose up against us, then they would have swallowed us alive, when their wrath was kindled against us. Then the waters would have overwhelmed us, the stream would have gone over our soul, then the swollen waters would have gone over our soul. Blessed be the Lord, who has not given us as prey to their teeth. Our soul has escaped as a bird from the snare of the fowlers. The snare is broken, and we have escaped. Our help is in the name of the Lord, who made heaven and earth. As you look at Psalm 124, I want to look at a couple of different aspects. The first half of the psalm deals with David saying, if it wasn't for God, everything would have fallen apart. Without the Lord, there would have been no victory. There would have been no overcoming. He says in verse 3, they would have swallowed us alive. Verse 4, the waters would have overwhelmed us. Verse 5, then the swollen waters would have gone over our soul. He says, let all Israel say, and remember, this isn't just him who's talking about this, but rather this is the nation, this is the people of Israel. If it had not been the Lord who was on our side, we would have been destroyed. Things would have gone much worse. We would have died in the circumstances that had befallen us. Notice that it doesn't mean that nothing bad happened. That if it hadn't been the Lord on our side, we would not have had joy, or we would not have had peace, or we would not have had this, that, or the other. But rather, he's talking about a particular type of situation. He's not saying that the Lord kept anything bad from happening to them, but rather he brought them out of a bad situation. There are so many people who have the mentality that if God is truly with them, nothing bad is ever going to happen to them, and that's just simply not true. What it does mean is that God will be there when the bad things happen. And if it were not for God, things could have been worse. You drop down to verse 6 to help illustrate this in the second part of what I wanted to talk about. Because in verse 6 he says, blessed be the Lord who has not given us as prey to their teeth. Our soul has escaped as a bird from the snare of the fowlers. The snare is broken and we have escaped. Twice here, he talks about the idea of escaping a snare or escaping a trap. And yet the sense in which it is given is that the trap had sprung. Things were looking bad. Things were not going according to plan. That the life and freedom was on the verge of being removed. But the trap was dismantled, and the snare was broken, and it was able to escape. You have this sense that when there are bad things that happen, the recognition of victory is not in the fact that everything always goes smoothly and that we always win without any effort whatsoever on our part. But rather it is the fact that there is always a way out. There is always a means of escape. And then verse 8, our help is in the name of the Lord, who made heaven and earth. Our help in times of trouble and in times of pain and in times where we're feeling trapped, our help is in the Lord. These are the things that I see in Psalm 124. Thank you so much for watching the video today. I hope that it's been beneficial to you. Next time we'll come back and we'll look at Psalm 125 and continue our study through the Psalms. I hope you'll join us then. But until then, have a great day.